Hey guys, alright, so you have learned how to find the percent of a number. Now you are going to find the percent of a number in a word problem. So the only difference here is you have to figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to find, and then you'll just use the same steps that you learned in class on Wednesday. So let's look at example 1 together. 26% of the students attended the dance. If there are 450 students at the school, how many students attended the dance? We want to underline whatever numbers we've been given. So we have 26% and 450. So we want to know how many students actually attended the dance. All right. So we've got 26% of them who were there. So what we are concerned with is what is 26% of 450? Because 26% of 450 will tell us the exact number of students who were at that dance. So now that we know that, we just need to write everything underneath and what it means. All right, what? That's going to be the variable. I'm going to use the letter N. Is, that means equals. 26% I want to write as a decimal. Remember, percent to decimal, paddle to the left. So this would be 0.26. Of means to multiply, and then we have 450. So n equals 0.26 times 450. So it's pretty simple here. All we have to do is just multiply those together. So I have 0.26 times 450. All right. All of that times 0 is 0. So I have to put my 0 as a placeholder here. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm going to carry my 3. 2 times 5 is 10. Plus 3 is 13. Carry my 1. 0 times 5 is 0. Plus 1 is 1. Now I have to put my 2 placeholders here. 6 times 4 is 24. I'm going to carry my 2. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus 2 is 10. 0 times 4 is 0. 0 plus 1 is just 1. Now I've got to add all of that together. That all equals 0. 0. 3 plus 4 is 7. 1 plus 0 is 1. And I have a 1 there. Now I have 2 decimal places total up here, so I have to have 2 total in my answer. So I just simply get 117. So n equals 117 students. All right, example 2. In Miss Frizzle's science class, 8 students did not have their homework to turn in. If there are 32 students in her class, what percent of her class was unprepared? All right, we know 8 of her students were unprepared because they did not turn their work in. So we want to know 8 is what percent of 32. All right. So 8 is means equals. What is whatever variable we're going to use. Again, I'm going to use the letter N. Of means we're going to multiply. And then I just need to write the 32. So 8 equals something times 32. And again, just like we have been seeing in our equations and inequalities, I'm going to write n times 32 as 32n. All right. N is the variable. Variable always wants to be isolated. If it's being multiplied by 32, I have to do the inverse and divide by 32. All right. So I just have to figure out what 8 divided by 32 is. So let's go ahead and work that out. Top dog in the house, so 8 goes in the house. 32 cannot go into 8, so I've got to add a decimal and a 0, and then decimal goes up. 32 can go into 80 2 times, and 32 times 2 is 64. All right, I get a remainder 16, so I have to add a 0. 32 can go into 160 5 times, which is 160. All right, so n equals 0.25. But do keep in mind the question wanted to know what percent of her class was unprepared. So I have to take 0.25 and I have to change that to a percent. Decimal 2%, dip to the right. So I want to take this decimal and move it 2 places to the right. So 25% of Ms. Frizzle's class was not prepared. All right, example 3. Of the 350 students at Bowles Junior High School, 25% prefer to wear blue jeans, 10% prefer sweatpants, 15% prefer khakis, and the rest did not have a preference. How many students did not have a preference? I always tell you guys, when you see this, not. We want to know who did not have a preference. So we have to figure out what is left over out of this percentage here. All right, so we have 25%, 10%, and 15%, but we're not concerned about these people. We want to know who is left. Well, keep in mind that a percent, that is a ratio comparing an amount to 100. So that means we have 100% total. So I want to take the total percentage we have here, subtract it from 100. That's going to be the percent of people who did not have a preference. So we have got 25%, 15%, and 10%. And if I add all of that up, I get 50%. So 50% of them have a preference. So I want to see how many do not have a preference. So 50 plus something is 100. So 50 plus something equals 100. So I'm going to subtract 50 from both sides. All right, so 50% of them did not have a preference. All right, now that I know that, 50% did not have a preference, but I want to know how much that is out of 350 students. So now I'm concerned with what is 50% of 350? All right, now I just have to write everything. What? That's our variable. Since I already used the letter N, I am going to use the letter B since we're talking about Bowles students. So B means equals. 50%, I want to change that to a decimal. Percent to a decimal, paddle to the left. So I end up with 0.50, or you could just leave it at 0.5. Of means to multiply, and then 350. All right, so B equals 0.5 times 350. So now I just simply multiply that out. So I have 350 times 0.5. 0 times 5 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. I'm going to carry that 2. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And then if I multiply everything by this 0, obviously I'm just going to get 0, so I can just stop here. I have 1 decimal place up here, so I have to have a 1 decimal place in my answer. So that means that the number of Bowles students who do not have a preference would be 175. All right, make sure that you wrote down everything that I wrote down and have your notes ready and brought back to class on Thursday. Keep in mind this will be a daily grade. Make sure you have everything copied. Have a good evening. I'll see you tomorrow.